Today's webinar is really about judging in the WRO. This goes right up from our provincials through to nationals, through to the internationals, and it's really designed to give an outline to people who may have not judged before or who are interested in judging as to what the process entails and how it works. So it'll give you an idea of what everything is about within WRO South Africa around our judging. Today, with me as usual, I have Dani Heymans, our national organizer for South Africa. He's also the international head judge for the Future Innovators category this year in Panama. I am Duncan, and I am the Robo Mission head judge here in South Africa and the Robo Mission head judge internationally as well. So if you've got questions, WRO, you're talking to the two correct people, especially from judging experience. We'll be able to give you quite an interesting amount of information around that. As always, you'll notice that your mic and your camera is off. This is so that Dani and I don't get distracted and we are able to part as much information as we can. Towards the end, we open everything up for questions and you're able to ask questions as you like. So first, I'm going to share my screen. As I said, my name is Duncan and I'm the head judge for WRO South Africa and head judge for the international final for Panama this year and was the head judge for the international final in Germany in 2022. So what does judging in the WRO involve? Ultimately, it's about scoring teams. Now, we'll start with a very broad sense of scoring. That's giving teams points. And this is the same for both Robo Mission, Future Innovators, pretty much every WRO category. As a judge, you will be doing some kind of scoring on teams. You'll be communicating with fellow judges, communicating directly with the teams. And one of the big things about being a judge is that you must be neutral. So if you have teams and you would like to be a judge, you must remain neutral. You cannot assist your teams. You have to stay as a judge, not as a school representative or a club representative. You will receive a lot of pressure from coaches and the spectators around you. It is quite a high pressured scenario when you judge, depending on really on which category you are in and which category you are judging. Then, as all of the Robo Mission judges know, there is standing, a lot of standing. So you'll be standing around for most of the day when you judge, and will every now and again get a little bit of a reprieve and be able to sit down. So, Dani, if I can ask you to mute yourself, please. So what do you need in order to be a judge? Is you need to know the rules. That's the ultimate goal. If you don't know the rules, you're going to really struggle to judge. You need to be fair and friendly with your judging, and you need to be neutral. That is the most important thing. You need to be absolutely neutral while judging. What do you do? Ultimately, you manage teams. You need to look after the teams that you are assigned. You need to look after the tables or the categories that you've been assigned. And the final thing is to score. The first two are more important in my view than the actual scoring, because you as a judge, you are the one who makes the final or the best impression of the WRO for these teams. And you could be the reason that teams come back to the WRO. So please, if you are judging this year, or if you're ever going to take up WRO judging, remember that you need to be making the best impression about the WRO as possible. And hopefully you've got a passion for WRO like Dani and I do, which will make that a lot easier. When you score teams, you ultimately need to follow the rules. And this not only refers to the rule packs, but it's any rules that are given to you as a judge on the day by the head judges of the various categories. We do this so that all judges will judge in the same way, so that every team will be judged fairly and in a very common and similar fashion. You work with your fellow judges. Normally, you would work in pairs depending on which category you are in. So you will not be alone in your judging experience. You will have somebody there with you to assist you and to help you along the route. You lay out the table for scoring rounds. This is more for the table categories, so everything except for really future innovators. Here, you are responsible for making sure the elements stay on the table. You're also making sure that the elements are correct and positioned in the correct places. You need to time the teams. This, again, is for everything except for future innovators, although you do have timing for future innovators, I'm wrong. And here it's really using your own device. So what we found within WRO is that if we give you a stopwatch or a device, often judges do not really know how to use those to an effective matter. However, everybody knows hopefully how to use the timer on their phone. And we find that judges timing on their phone is a lot more accurate than people trying to figure out how a tablet works or how even a stopwatch works. As a judge, you calculate the final team scores, which you would then submit through to your head judge. And any issues you encounter on the day, you communicate directly to the head judges who will be able to assist you and the teams during the day. You look after your table. Here again, you follow the rules. So you lay the table out as it says within the rules. You maintain the elements, you look after them, make sure that they're clean, you make sure that they are built correctly. And if there are issues, you again communicate directly to the head judge. You then answer questions about your table. Now, the questions that you get should come from the teams. As a table judge, you should only be communicating directly with the teams and the other judges. You should not be talking to um, the spectators or to the coaches, as this is the priority or the main job of the head judges on the day. You and your abilities on the tables should really be to look after the teams and make sure they have the best experience. When you manage your teams, you should always be friendly. Remember, you're the first point of contact at a WRO competition, and you could be the difference between a team having a horrible experience and a really good experience. You need to be fair to all teams. So again, you need to be neutral and put all bias aside and be as fair as possible. You look after the team that are assigned to you. So some team members may have medical issues, they may not be feeling well. It is up to you as the judge to make sure that that person is comfortable, that they understand what is happening. And if teams do have an issue, you can then address the issue if you're able. Otherwise, the head judges will be there to assist you. You need to maintain some kind of order at your tables or within your judging. And how that works is really to look after the teams, make sure that each team gets the same amount of time to be judged, that each team respects one another, and that they really listen to what you have to say and to answer questions that they may have around their tables. Again, if you communicate, you need to communicate with the head judges, and this is around team issues. So again, a team member's not feeling well, a robot's been dropped, let the head judges know what's happening so that they're able to assist. And finally, there is to celebrate and cry with the teams. You are allowed to have fun. So the teams will have some really good runs. There'll be some funny things where robots will drive off of tables. Teams will laugh. Teams will also cry. So feel free to celebrate and cry with the teams. It really breeds a really good ground within the entire sport, giving everybody a happy and good experience if our judges get involved with the teams. Some important notes. Teams are under a lot of pressure. They are working on these projects since January or have been working on these projects since January, and they are now under a lot of pressure. Their parents are watching, their coaches are watching, their friends are watching, so they do feel a lot of pressure and they will make mistakes. So keep that in mind when a team member starts shouting at you. Be aware that they could have something going on that we don't know about. So try and always be friendly to it. There are some exceptions, but we would get to that when we go through our actual team meetings. Teams generally follow what coaches have told them, even if information is incorrect. This is very true and very common. What you'll find is teams will be doing the wrong thing on the table where they've misunderstood the rules. Your role as a judge is to make sure they follow the correct rule and to point it out. So if you see a team doing something incorrect, so for example, their robot is too big to fit in the starting area, point that out so that they're still able to compete and that they don't go through to their scoring round and aren't able to compete. We need to try and allow each team to be able to compete and stay within the rules. And again, remember that teams have worked hard on these projects, that you should be supportive of them and be positive no matter what score they are getting. So the guys who are scoring 10 points should receive the same admiration and celebration as the guys scoring full points. So keep that in mind as a judge. Your role as a judge on the day is to really look after and protect your teams. You need to give your teams an experience that they really want to come back to. You want to work with your fellow judges, you'll learn from them, but not only the judges, you'll learn from the teams as well. You need to score fairly, following the rules, and provide a knowledge of the scoring process. So, what do I mean by that? You need to show the teams how they're going to be scored. A lot of them may be new, so they may have never been scored before. So, taking them through how the scoring works can really assist them and make them feel better while they're in this high pressure environment. Within the WRO, we have specific layouts. Now, this is for everything really except for future innovators. Teams will be assigned a seat at a table. So here we can see a chart where there's table A or row A, there's A1, and that's seating position 1, A2, seating position 2. Teams will need to sit in their assigned seats, and they will only work on the table that they have been assigned, so the one in their row. There is then a quarantine table. This is where robots are placed in order to be checked by judges before scoring rounds. This really refers to the RoboSports, Future Engineers, and the Robo Mission. Explorer and Future Innovators have different rules. We then have what I call a holding line. This is a line that's normally placed on the floor. And the idea is that teams, when they are queuing for the table to practice, should be standing behind that line. It also allows the head judges and other judges to move in between the tables pretty quickly to get from one area to the other. But most important of all, it doesn't crowd the table. It gives the team on the mat an opportunity to run it how they want it, with lots of space around them, so that they don't have their robots knocked out of their hands by a big group, that they can concentrate and that they feel a little bit better about running on the table, because it should be just be them and the judge. No other team should be getting involved during their practice round. So I'm going to jump onto Robo Mission Judging specifically. So within the Robo Mission competition, there's a basic format where it works on practice runs. There's generally in South Africa 3 practice runs, followed by a quarantine round, followed by a scoring run. So a practice run changes time. How it works is the first run should be about an hour. It then gets shorter and shorter. After each practice run is the quarantine round, and then down to the scoring round, where teams come one by one to be scored by the judge. Within the judging as well, especially in Robo Mission, there's a strict scoring and timing. You have 2 minutes, which the team must complete the challenge. When the 2-minute timer is hit, the timing stops, the run stops, and the team is then scored. There's a quarantine or inspection round. You as a judge will be involved within the quarantine inspection round. This is where we check to make sure that the robots fit within the size requirements. Within the judging, there is also high pressure during these scoring rounds. You are going to be looked at by coaches, by judges, by spectators, and by the teams themselves. Coaches will be looking for mistakes because that's what coaches do, and they will often point them out to you if you've made them. The role of the head judge is to assist you if there has been something, and we try and be as fair as possible as a judge to the team. Our responsibility is to the team and not to the coach. So we will always do what we think is in the best interest of the team and not necessarily in the coach. Within Robo Mission, we have various types of judges. We have what I call table judges. These are our standard judges. These are the guys who work the hardest. They're the most important. They're the ones who work on the tables. You are paired with a judge. So if you are brand new, you will normally be paired with somebody who has a lot more experience than you, someone who maybe has judged at the international final, and they will take you through the judging process so that in years to come, you'll be able to train other judges and assist them on the tables. You need to score your teams, you communicate with the teams, manage the competition tables, and you assist with quarantine rounds. There's then age group head judges. They manage all of the judges. They assist with scoring and making really hard decisions on tables. So if the 2 judges on the table are not sure how to score something, the head judge is called and they will make a final call on the table. They will also handle the randomization. By that, they will actually do the randomizations, lay them out on one of the tables, and the table judges will then copy that randomization onto their tables. Randomization for Robo Mission stays the same in the first scoring round for all teams, but can change in the second and third scoring round. So be aware, randomization can change. They communicate with coaches and spectators. So you'll see there that our judges and head judges are the ones who communicate with coaches and spectators. Table judges should be focusing directly on the teams and the children involved. You should not have the pressure from the coaches on the sidelines and the spectators on the sidelines. Your role should only be really watching the teams. Head judges will then confirm scoring. So if you feel that you've made a mistake, please contact the head judge and they'll be able to check it out and make sure that it's correct. The head judges are also the only judges who are able to disqualify a team or make penalization or disqualifying decisions. A normal table judge will not be allowed to disqualify a team. It has to be done through a specific way in a specific fashion that the head judge will know and handle. There is then a category head judge. In this case, for if you're coming to the Johannesburg or the Pretoria competitions, you'll see me running around. That'll be me, where we announce the surprise rule, we communicate with coaches and spectators, assist with the randomizations, disqualification decisions, assist with scoring, and we provide technical expertise. So here, if a team has a technical issue, the head judges will get involved and try and assist them if they are able. If it's something like the code is wrong, they will not assist. You cannot, as a judge, assist any team or give any team an advantage. You must be neutral. However, if it's something like a motor has broken, the kids do not know how to connect to a laptop, or the cable is broken, it is the role of the head judges to try and assist them as they can by putting them in contact with other teams or giving them suggestions on how to possibly fix a technical issue. Technical issues do not mean robots not working because of hardware or because of software. It's really about trying to give a team the best odds of being able to run their robot without giving them information on what the problem is. We then jump to Explorer. Now, Explorer is a South African competition. It is our entry-level competition, and it's quite basic and a lot of fun. It differs from Robo Mission in that it's got continuous practice runs. There is no quarantine. The scoring is really whenever the team wants to score. However, we do have specific time intervals in which scores must be registered. Teams have to notify judges of their scoring attempts. So unlike Robo Mission, Explorer teams need to tell the judge we want to score now, and the judge will set up the table and run their round. So now I think I'm going to pass over to Dani. Dani, if you can let us know some information about future innovators.
There we go. And Dani appears, and Dunks did explain, and I'm sure you've got it all. But anyway, a national organizer in South Africa, and they've been judging, head judging, etc., for approximately 12 years. And in the picture that you see there, speaking to the judges at the last international endorsement, and that is actually the coaches meeting as well. So what happens at the international is we have a coaches meeting pre-event to answer any questions from coaches, because everybody comes from around the world. Thanks, Dunks. Right, future innovators judging. In the category itself, teams present a working robot solution as an exhibit. So basically, like a science expo, you have a table and you show your working robot, you have posters and pictures, and you can have a video running on a screen, etc. Basically, what happens is judges score the presentation or the pitch about your solution around that particular theme for the year of the competition on a rubric and ask questions about the solution. So basically, pre-event, generally judges would receive a report, and from the report, it is possible then to have an idea of what the project is about, and you can actually prepare questions for the actual judging time period that you have. Each judge's scores, and every judge scores on their own score sheet and rubric, and then each judge's scores are then averaged for each team to provide a ranking, and judges then deliberate the final positions. Thanks, Dunks. Basically, that's an idea of what a score sheet looks like. Some people on here have seen those before. Basically, I see Sean's question there, which relates specifically to this score sheet as well. And as you can see, Basically, they're divided into specific topics. And, the project and innovation. So, for example, there are your idea quality, etc., research and report, social impact and need, key innovation and slogan. And then there's also a slight difference between, you can see from elementary to senior, where within the business aspect or the entrepreneurial aspect, for elementary teams, they will just come up with a key innovation slogan for their particular project, which is age appropriate. And then typically within senior, that same area of scoring, you have to present, for example, a cost structure, a revenue stream, key resources, and a record of, perhaps people in industry that you have approached to present your prototype to and get some ideas about. And that helps you obviously with improving it as well. And then within robotic solution, the solution itself, I mean, are you dealing with the problem? And then there's engineering, and then there's the code efficiency and software automation, and obviously the demonstration. So typically, we need to see a working robot to be able to see the idea in reality, to understand that it actually is a workable solution. So within that particular area, yes, judges can and do have a look at the code, depending on whether they want to. And typically a good idea to actually ask questions around the code as well, because the one thing within the competition is that there is no restriction in the hardware or the software. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, because not all our judges are code or programming savvy. And then that's why you're in teams. So hopefully with that particular thing, a topic, you can actually discuss with your peer judge and come to a group score on that particular piece. And then lastly, and that's what I like about the Future Innovator category, is the diversity there, because it leads you into the business world, and presentation skills, actually reports preparing, showing a solution, pitching your solution, and also the presentation skills and the teamwork within that. And typically, the last one is quick thinking. So there is around the good questions that hopefully come from the judges. Because that also, the project, for example, if you didn't ask questions, and then we wouldn't know if the team actually did all the work for this particular project and did the code. So that's why we need to ask questions, and we ask those questions pointedly to make sure that they understand, and if they can't answer, at least somebody in the team needs to be able to answer. Just around future innovators, to be aware that obviously the project solution has to be theme relevant. And what happens is, on a particular day, you should only be judging in a particular age category, and then to be aware that your expectations are at the same level of that particular age. So age appropriate expectations. Thanks. Before I move on to the future innovators judging, again, I'm going to answer the question in there. In terms of the research, are there ways of checking for plagiarism? Yes, there are. And at international level, you see a 80% completed draft, for example, of the research. And it's a very difficult thing to do, because if you're not in the field, I know that, in fact, Sean, you can assist us with perhaps giving us, the platforms to be able to check something like that for people who don't have as much experience. But yes, at international, I have done it in the past. It's not my forte, so quite difficult. But normally the research is generally copied, copied other people's work, etc., etc. And then to just see that the work is your own when you're presenting your solution, and the level of vocabulary, etc. It's also very difficult at international level, because it is done in English, and out of the 92 member countries, there are probably 90 that don't speak English. They speak their own home languages. Future innovators judging. So typically, within the judging is a subjective, as all judges have different opinions and expertise. We're not going to agree on everything. So that's why we judge as best we can with the knowledge that we have. And eventually, and it has worked well, that, if you have between 4 and 10 scores in a particular age group, is that your ranking is quite fair. And if not fair, then typically what happens is there are arguments for and against teams in the deliberation process. Judging knowledge. So the knowledge base, not all of us are, if you're an engineer, that doesn't mean you're good at marketing. And so typically across the spectrum of the rubric, we look for and promote the fact that you need to have at least two of the listed skill sets that are mentioned here: engineering, programming, obviously, and coding, some sort of business and entrepreneurship, and presentation skills. These all come, typically with a bit of experience in life. We do have a lot of university students who are very, very clever and studying very, very technical degrees. But typically, we balance those hopefully with professors and managers out of industry to bring a balance. So it's never perfect, but we try and promote and work towards an ideal. Thanks, Doug. Right, I'm going to keep going here, and then we'll get to the rest of the questions later. The judging process: judges work in pairs, and they see and score each team in their age group. That's at national level in South Africa and provincial level. At international, you don't necessarily see all the teams because there are not enough judges and there are just too many teams. So you can work in groups, for example, and then come together, and then there's another deliberation or another check, but I'm not going to elaborate on that now. There are 3 age categories, which is the same as for mission, for the Robo Mission, which is 8 to 12, junior 11 to 15, and senior 14 to 19. Thanks, you weren't around. I just want to check the 14 to 19. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, 14 to 19.
Okay, good. Just go back one slide for me. Thanks. Oh, okay. So, and then typically a presentation per team with 2 judges is 5 minutes of presentation and then 5 minutes for question and answers from the judges. So they have a 10-minute slot to a pair of judges to do the best they can in presenting their solution. And that is a strict time. I mean, if there's a 30 seconds or so, then it's okay for them to finish. And then the 5 minutes for Q&A from judges should be utilized in full if possible, even if it's just for them to replay a certain part of it. But keep them busy for those 5 minutes, otherwise they don't feel that they really got value from the judges, or they quietly think that the judges are not too impressed with their project. Thanks, Doug. Next slide. So just so that you know, I mean, obviously within the international documentation, which I deal with a lot, and we've always had problems, but it's, how are we dealing with this and establishing the base of competent judges is growing all the time. And there are documents, for example, with guiding principles for judges, which typically include things like treat all children with respect and treat their endeavors, attempts, and work with respect. At international level, for example, as Doug said, lots of time is spent on these projects. At internationals, for a team to travel overseas, two people with a coach, it's all their own costs or parent costs, and we have to respect that. And even if their project is not that impressive, they have to have a brilliant experience. And in any negative thing, even if there's something isn't working, one can always find something positive to compliment them with, to keep up their motivation and their experience at the event. So in subjectivity is obviously very important to be consistent. So if, for example, you're not good at one of those particular topics as a judge, is just to remember to be consistent with how you score that, and with no prejudice, obviously, towards favoritism. Generally, at internationals, the judges are actually allocated so that they don't actually even judge their own teams from their own countries. Judges play an important role, so need to be seen as being responsible and professional, diplomatic, supportive, and have empathy. We are working with children, and they are absolutely incredible. Their minds are really incredible, but they are still young and they're emotional. And you know what? I mean, on first days of competition, international summit, one or two of the team members are actually still sleeping while the others are building, and setting up their stalls, because they fly from far away around the world. Next slide. Thanks, Dunks. So that was about future innovators. I'm just going to touch on robo sports and future engineers, because typically the most important thing judging there is, very importantly, is knowing the rules of the game and the challenge itself. The rest, beneficial to have more technical knowledge, okay, because there are more advanced categories, because it is, well, even with robo sports, it's Lego education based, but you add pixie cams, and there can be some, you can design mounts for the pixie cams with 3D printing, etc. And obviously those have to connect. Future engineers is at a totally different level, and there are recommended things, but you need to have a lot of knowledge for that. And then, future innovators we've spoken about, but between these two as well, robo sports and future engineers, the same values and principles apply, around how to deal with the teams, etc., etc. To have a good relationship with teams in any of the categories, okay, helps them continue in pursuit of excellence in the categories that they participate in. And we want them to continue, not just to come back to competitions, but to continue so that they advance their knowledge, which effectively takes all these problem solving and ideas and solutions into their studies and careers going forward. Thanks, Dunks. I think that was mine. I've got one more slide. Oh, it's international. Yeah, so just as far as international judging is concerned, to be considered to judge at internationals, anyone can apply. So at least 1 or more years of judging at provincial and national level in our country in the category of application. So typically, if you've been judging at in Mission, you can apply obviously to go into future innovators, for example, but it's probably better to get an opportunity if you stay within the category that you have been judging in. To be considered, inform the South African national organizer, which is myself, of your interest that you would like to participate. And you can even do that now, straight after you've watched this or watched the replay. Just contact WRO at handsontech.co.za and show us the interest that you want to participate in international, and we'll put you onto our database. I immediately put you onto the international database with the record that you have. And then basically the national organizer adds the judge to the international database and proposes those judges to the association. So we don't make the final decisions about that. WRO Association then may accept the judges depending on obviously requirements, which is numbers, number one, and then a track record of making sure that there's a good balance of a little bit of new blood, but lots of experienced people that we can rely on to give a fair and proper and then exact result. Unfortunately, judges pay their own way as volunteers for the international events. Some people have managed to arrange a little bit of private funding. But what has happened in the last 2 years is that, for example, the judges' registration fees internationally have come down to about 60% of the full amount, because we trying to keep people, and having the same people coming back is always great, because that's where our experience base is. Thanks, Dunks.
Thanks very much, Tani. That's very informative about future innovators, future engineers, and the judging process and all of those. What I want to talk about now is really if you are interested in becoming a judge or judging within WRO South Africa or the international competition, please visit our webpage and register as a judge. You'll see we've got two registration options. You can register as a WRO SA judge or an Explorer judge. So we've done this to make sure that people are aware that the competitions are on different days. For example, in Johannesburg and Pretoria, the WRO competitions run on a Saturday, whereas the Explorer competitions run on a Friday. So we want to make sure judges are registering for the correct day. That's why it's been split like that. So your first stop, if you want to become a judge, is to register as a judge through the website. You'll then be contacted if you are successful. We then have some important information or some useful information. If you are interested and want to learn more about WRO, please visit our Facebook page and like the Facebook page. There we put out quite a lot of information around WRO and what's happening in the country. This is also the first stop if you are looking for information or changes in rules, because our Facebook page is updated quite regularly. Our website is also very important. We've got a Q&A up on the website, and there holds a lot of information of questions that we've been asked. But not only that, there's some international questions that have been asked as well, which affect the different categories. So please have a look at the website and keep track of the website, as that's where all the information will appear. And finally, we've got the email address, wro@handsontech.co.za. If you email this, one of us will contact you, hopefully within a few minutes, sometimes within a day, depending on how busy we are, and we'll be able to answer your questions. If you have team changes, this is the same email address that you'll ask or send your email to. But really, if you have any questions regarding WRO, that is where you should send them to. All right, so we've now come to the end of our sort of presentation. Dani, I think let's put it to the floor if we've got questions.
Yes, I see there is one question which I can answer to, which again is future innovators. And it's a question relating to briefing the judges not to be blinded by, for example, the wow of a lot of money being spent on a robotics project, whether it be robotics or whether it be in the marketing thereof. So, you know, banners and posters, etc. So typically, in the judging training or profiles, generally, it's the same as always. You know, keep it simple, stupid. And if you can, for example, have a really good solution, but you're working with inadequate resources, but you still demonstrate it in the best way that you can, and it's not a printed thing, and you do understand it. We have had teams at internationals be in the top 8 with less impressive projects, for example. And obviously at international level, it's very different. You know, the guys fill up those all teams, in fact, fill up their whole cubicle with banners and posters and all sorts of creative things, you know, to make it impressive, because that is what it's about. I mean, you're wanting to, the environment in what you want to show the solution also is impressive, and that's part of a pitch. You know, that's how you might swing somebody investing in your prototype in the future. And so generally they are aware of it. We actually hope, and the other thing that happens is within deliberations, typically you will have a mix of people who might not have noticed that. They're more impressed by the wow, but you will have most people appreciating where teams come from and being under-resourced, but still being very, very positive of what they did, and they will, you know, make a case if they think that team, you know, deserves more recognition than a team that has wowed more than being able to explain and present not as well. So that's basically an answer to that.
Thanks, Dani. I saw there was one earlier from Robert of asking how I can become a head judge. Basically, for anybody listening, you need to have judged for quite a while. You need to have shown quite a good competency, but ultimately you need to have been very fair with the teams and made fair decisions. So think about how you would feel as a team member and the judge talking to you. So it is possible to become a head judge. And what we've been trying to do in South Africa, especially the past couple of years, is we've been trying to grow our judging pool and our experience pool. So we've been moving the head judges around, or category age group head judges around, so that people can have experience at that top level. It is a little bit different to a normal table judge because you're working with a completely different set of rules and you're working with a different background. You need to make the final decisions, and most of the time that decision is really difficult, and the teams do end up crying or showing up some emotion. So be ready, because if you are going to be head judge, be prepared. You need to be quite strong within it and to receive criticism from coaches, teams, and spectators as well. It's not as easy as people think.
I don't think any further questions, but just for the people that are on board, yeah, and then the people who watch this later. You know, and Duncan has mentioned it in other webinars before, is that you actually, your level of competence as a coach mentor improve, and you see a lot more when you're a judge on the floor. And remember, judging isn't always technical. On the tables, for example, you will have one person who has a lot of knowledge, and then the other person is a timekeeper, but hopefully gains knowledge and they can practice. So we are having a drive to include as many of our coaches around the country, or in the other categories, just more experienced individuals with the right technical knowledge to become part of our judging pool. So anybody out there, and you know what, contact us and speak to us by phone, you know, so we can assist you about, don't be too daunted by it, you know, and if you are daunted by it and you want to participate, you are volunteering in a very, very important part of many teams' lives, and it's a wonderful experience, you know. There, I mean, you know, I just saw just now that Mohammed Hassan was a Future Innovators participant from Greenside about 3 years ago. He's now studying. They came first to the country, and here he is actually, and he'll be judging in the Future Innovators category this year. So it's really good to have those people on board with even having participated experience. So I encourage other people not to be daunted by that. And if they want more information, just to contact Duncan and myself, and we can actually have a live chat about it as well.
Thanks, Sonny. Let's see if there's any more questions coming through. While waiting for that, I just want to share my screen again and introduce the next webinar. So for anyone who's interested, this, I think, really for our teams is the most important. If you're a coach, webinar number 5 on the 5th of July. We are going to be covering what you need to bring to a competition, how your teams can perform at a competition, what they need to expect, both from a judging side and an admin side. This one is really designed to try and help you prepare as best as you can for the competition itself, especially if you are new to the WRO. This is the webinar that you don't want to miss, because here you can ask your final questions just before the competitions start coming up towards the end of July and the start of August. So please, if you've got teams, this is really the one webinar that you should not miss. It's the most important and can really help you a lot. All right, I think we are pretty good on time and things, Dani. If there are no further questions, I think we can end off now. Thank you, everybody, for sitting in.